Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. This is Life List, a birding podcast. I am George Armistead, and I am here with my co-host, Alvaro Jaramillo. Alvaro, What's going on, amigo?
Oh, little hoarse voice here from screaming yesterday on a pelagic trip because we had so many things to scream about.
I noticed that. Yeah, you sound, it gives you, I think it gives you a little street cred. It gives you a little, gives you a little something, some gravel there,
Yeah,
I like it.
I sound a little more, hello.
Yeah, you got a little Barry White going on there.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we should get straight into the good stuff today, Al. We have a close friend of ours here as a guest today, and that is our friend Dorian Anderson. And Dorian is an avid birder from the incomparable city of Philadelphia. Dorian began birding at the age of 15. I met him just a few years after that. But then really got back into it hardcore, I guess, a little bit later, like in your 20s or so. He focused mostly on his scientific career. He earned a BS in molecular and cellular biology from Stanford. Then did pre-doctoral research in molecular embryology at Harvard and earned his PhD in genetics and cell biology at NYU before embarking upon a big year by bicycle in which he navigated a large chunk of the lower 48 entirely by bicycle and covered some 17,830 miles. That's 28,500 kilometers for our Canadian listeners and European listeners. And he saw 618 species and raised close to $50,000 for bird conservation. Now living in San Mateo, California, where he routinely leads pelagic trips with Alvaro's Adventures, is Dorian Anderson, and also leading trips for tropical birding. Dorian, welcome to the show. Really good to have you here.
Stoked to be here. It's a lot of fun to be here with you and Alvaro, as I have a long birding history with both of you, George in Philadelphia, now Alvaro here in California. So it's definitely fun to be on with friends in a semi-professional context now, in digital media, so to speak.
We've only known you to be semi-professional. So
yeah, exactly. Anything more than that, it's just too big an ask. I understand. So I'm suffering the same kind of like heavy eyelids and rough voice after shouting on the boat. The trip yesterday was fantastic. We had 3 species of booby. We had red-footed booby. We had 2 Nazca boobies, brown boobies, Crevares murrelets, which haven't been seen in Monterey Bay in a couple of years, storm petrels in limited numbers. It was a really, really good day out. So
yeah, in fact, like the Crevares might be almost 10 years since they've been seen there, and like since the last really warm water episodes, and our tally was 864 Sabins gulls. I just saw.
Man,
all 3 Jaegers.
Yeah, that's right. A bunch of
skuas. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was just activity all day.
What percentage of those Sabins gulls were youngsters?
Not many.
Okay. Still early for those youngsters.
Some, but the overwhelming majority were adults.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was really good. I mean, I think that like I've really enjoyed the pelagic birding aspect of living here in California, and obviously kind of slowly working my way up on the totem pole where I can do spotting and occasionally lead a trip for Alvaro when he's out of town. It's great. I mean, I like being out on the ocean, and it's a real privilege. So It's definitely one of the big bonuses of living in coastal California.
And, we also saw that fin whale. We hadn't seen that for a while.
And a minke we had as well. So,
well, how often do you see red-footed boobies out there, Al?
Well, this is one. They call it Ruby the red-footed booby, and it's hanging out by that. So that was the kind of gimme. That was the one that we kind of knew we might see. But the other 2, and including 2 separate Nazcas, assuming two different ones, that was completely unexpected.
The red-footed boobies that I've seen out here have tended to be. I've seen them on the shore in San Mateo, on the shore in San Francisco, and now on the shore in Monterey. They tend to show up and then post up for a while. Like I've never had one fly by on a trip, for instance.
Right. You don't have them way out at sea hawking flying fish or anything.
No, like I have them on my bike list in both San Mateo and San Francisco counties when you get these posted up birds on docks and things.
I've never seen a flying fish on any of our pelagics.
Yeah, probably the water's way too cold out where you guys are, I guess.
Yeah.
You're thinking, George, you're thinking Hatteras where they're all over the place.
Well,
right?
or like the Galapagos where that's you get them offshore. They're doing that sometimes. But, yeah. Yeah, well, that's cool. It sounds like a heck of a nice trip. Was this the final Farallons trip of the season, Al? Is that the one?
No, it's Monterey. Yeah.
This is Monterey. Okay. Yeah.
And the day before, I was out Morro Bay, which is further south, and that was the first inkling that we had, Crevaries merlets coming up. Is that was like many years since they've been seen there, and crazy statistic, but we saw 2 Wilson storm petrels out of Morro Bay. The locals said that was the first time they had been seen on a birding boat in that county since the 80s.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, not sure if that's valid statistic, but they get really rare when you get further south in California, and that was kind of right at the cusp of where you see them.
Man,
it's crazy. Yes, stuff is happening right now. We'll see what the trips coming up next weekend. We have 3 trips, so
nice.
We'll see.
Yeah, we had a Hillstar pelagic go out this weekend, overnighter. I was not able to go myself, but Zach Baer, Emma Price, Jonathan Irons, and Mikey Lutberding were leading, and it went well. 3 white-faced storm petrels, 20+ black-capped petrels, 4 species of dolphins, sperm whale, scalped hammerhead sharks, bandrumps and leeches storm petrels.
What port was that? Was it like Belmar or Brielle
this was, yeah, good question. This was out of Lewis, Delaware,
south,
and went into Maryland waters. It was pretty much exclusively in Maryland waters.
Got it.
So it was the first time, I think, in like 10 years there had been a good white-faced storm petrel show in Maryland. Been quite a while from what I understand. So we have another one coming up in early September, overnight trip that's going out of Point Pleasant, New Jersey. I think I'm going to be on that one. So hopefully we'll have similar success out there. Yeah.
Hey, George, and you guys, Philadelphia guys, you ever thought of doing a DVOC meeting in Philadelphia, Paraguay? The other Philadelphia?
Sister city.
Huh?
Yeah.
Sister city. It's spelled with an F, though. So
yeah,
immediately disqualifying.
Yeah. Like, well, you got to pronounce it, right? Imitation. Otherwise they couldn't pronounce it,
Right. you got to love English, right? The spelling of everything.
Yeah, I do not believe that. I don't think that's been discussed, Al. I think that would be.
Well, now it's going to be discussed.
Yeah,
it will be discussed.
I'll raise it. See what we can do.
Chaco birding,
Yeah. Paraguay has some stuff. It's getting chopped up pretty good for soy farming, from what I understand. But
blame
the
vegetarians.
Very, very. I'm not going to touch that one, but yeah. Well, Dorian, I wanted to comment. I think I did comment slightly in our pre sort of convo here before we started recording that I think your hair is almost as big as the first time that I ever met you.
Yeah.
Your hair doesn't really get long; it just gets big.
It just gets fluffy, right? I kind of grow this helmet of hair. I don't know. It's kind of like 3 inches now, but it can get up to like 7 or 8, and then it's like super spherical, and I look like the guys in Spaceballs with the black helmets on. So
the first time, you know how I met? I don't know if I told you this story, Al, but I was introduced to Dorian by Robert S. Ridgely.
My mentor as a kid,
Birds of Panama, Birds of Ecuador author, Birds of South America, well-known ornithologist from the area here, now living up in New Hampshire, I think. But Bob knew that I was going down for some pelagics, and he was like, "Hey, George, you ought to reach out to this kid Dorian. He I think you guys you could do some birding together." And so Dorian was like, "All right, he's like, actually, I'm going to drive. And I was like, all right, that's fine. And he shows up and he's wearing like, I forget what shirt he was, but he had like some big like Hawaiian shorts, like kind of clam digger style shorts on, and he was wearing like a visor. And I want to say it was like with one of those like cellophane green kind of see-through visor thing. And his hair, he looked like Sideshow Bob. His hair was like popping out of it like a troll doll. He looked ridiculous. I was like, Jesus, man, this is the guy I'm going to spend the next four days birding with or whatever. I was like, this could be interesting. But the truth is we did just fine, Dorian, didn't we? We
got along, saw a lot of birds, had a good time. So it all worked out.
Well, I don't know if you remember, that was the weekend of the Swinhoe Storm Petrel.
That's right. I was telling the story on the boat yesterday when we were on the Miss Hatteras chasing the bird at top speed in that boat, just like watching the fuel gauge drop the entire time.
And we were like 40 miles out and we were heading southeast. We're like heading directly away from land chasing this thing. It was found at like 2:30 in the afternoon or whatever. It was like, yeah, that was a hell of a trip. It was actually an amazing
tropic
day.
Bird. We had Trinidad petrel, white-tailed tropic bird, all kinds of stuff that day.
I also remember the longest weed line, sargassum weed, to be clear here, long sargassum line. And like we just went along it for like a half hour and counted something like 400 or something. Maybe it was more than that. Audubon shearwaters. They're just all along this change with the sargassum weed walled up. And it was like Audubon shearwaters all along the way. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that since then.
Yeah, that was great. I still remember that. That was my first Hatteras pelagic trip.
And then
we did another one the next day.
Do you remember what we did on the way back?
Well, that was the second time I went when the whiskered tern was found in
wasn't
New
the same
Jersey.
weekend?
No, I've been down there 2 separate times for 2 trips each time.
Okay.
And the second time, I think it was anyway, we got the call that the whiskered tern had been found in New Jersey. We got off the boat at 6 p.m. and then I drove 12 straight hours north and we got to Cape May at like 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
And the bird was gone.
We couldn't even, and we like couldn't take a ferry, so we had to go like the
had to
long
go
way
around.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So that's why it ended up being so long. Yeah, that is still my like longest and most painful failed chase.
Yeah, I dipped on that bird like 3 times. I was like, man, this bird sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. That's East Coasters still have a chance at that. It's been shown up a couple times since I've been out west, but
yeah, I've seen it since then. I saw one of the other ones that showed up at Cape May, performed very well actually last time I was there.
Yeah, speaking of Paraguay, one showed up there about 10 years ago.
Whiskered tern.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
A little South American content here.
Yeah.
Nice. That a guy. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also I'm trying to remember, guys, my first trip to Colombia, I think Dorian's first trip to Colombia, Al's maybe second trip to Colombia, something like that. We all went together.
That's right.
John Myers kind of roped us all in together.
Yeah. On the Audubon project.
That's
which
right.
Alvaro was more entrenched in at that time than we were. We were kind of ringers at the time.
Yeah.
But that's where we all met for the first time. Like George kind of knew what to expect. I'm not sure Alvaro was ready for.
Well, they said they needed a photographer, and I was like, I think I got the guy. But then he does talk a little bit. Just so you know, a little heads
There's
up.
some baggage. Yeah.
It was like, wasn't it? They wanted people sort of in the birding media / tour landscape, and there was sort of they needed photography. They wanted a whole bunch of things. So it was a real diverse group of people,
right?
That happened to include all 3 of us. And I guess by that point I'd already been working on the Northern Columbia birding trail.
And I think you'd written a lot of that curriculum, right? A lot of the
I think you'd written the itinerary / curriculum already. Yeah, we were kind of like the guinea pigs for it. Right.
That was pretty cool, actually. That whole project.
It was.
Now it's like so long ago, but you it's really great to see now everybody's going to Colombia. At that point in time, people didn't really go to Colombia much.
No,
we kind of were part of the group that helped that to make that happen.
It's really cool to see how far the country has come, and it was cool. I mean, when I guess there were I ended up working kind of longer term on that project, helping with the southwestern Andean route and the eastern Andean route. Got to spend some time down there, but it was really cool getting into some areas that kind of gringos hadn't visited in a while, and seeing some of these undeveloped areas and realizing that they're perfectly safe. And it's great to see how well Colombia has done because it's so bird rich and such a great place.
I was looking at your pics of masked saltator recently as
oh yeah,
that was a new bird for me on my trip I just got back from, Life Birds masked saltator, and I was like checking out pics of it, and I was like, oh, Dorian's got some.
Yeah, that bird was thought to be extinct at one point. So that was fun. I ran into those. I've run into those twice, once in a photographic contest and once like high in the canopy where I couldn't get anything of it. But the photos I got on that particular occasion were really good. Very fortunate, along the side of a road, so it's just pure luck.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, so I feel like there's probably a lot of folks, Dorian, that know you through your photography, maybe as much as anything. Do you want to talk about what you're shooting with right now, and what subjects maybe you've been shooting lately?
Yeah, I'm still shooting with Canon gear. I use an R5, which is kind of their standard mirrorless. They have a couple of other ones. They have the R7 and R3, which are kind of cheaper and more expensive. I use the middle of the road one right now. It suits all my purposes. I mean, obviously everybody wants more from their gear, but for what I need to do right now, it's fine. I'm still using my 600 millimeter lens for 90% of my work, but that has changed a bit recently because I've started to do a lot of Africa work for vacations and guiding, and so a 600 doesn't serve you well for elephants and rhinos.
It's a lot of lens for buffalo and elephants and giraffes.
It's been fun to rip out the 100, 400, and even like the 70 to 200 for some of these animals to get some habitat context and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I've been fortunate to fall into tropical birding and be doing both birding tours and photo tours and these hybrid things we have called birding with the camera tours. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm still trying to do birds in flight stuff. I mean, I think that I'm a better technical photographer than I am creative photographer. My stuff tends to be very subject forward, very detail oriented. I'm not quite as creative when it comes to using light and capturing habitat. I guess that's the birding background in me, that I want to see the field marks. I want to see the fine plumage elements. And that's something a lot of the best photographers, or the most creative photographers I know, don't have that birding background, and they're not chained to showing like all the different field marks or even trying to capture different plumages. They just want like male breeding. They don't want to think about these other things. They don't care about like non-breeding shorebirds, which I love, for instance, because
I was gonna say your shorebird stuff, I think is when I think of your imagery, I think of shorebirds a lot. I think you do those particularly well.
I mean, that makes sense. Living on the coast,
on the ground,
Oh, crawling around,
crawling around, and muddy belly and the whole thing. And I think he does it for show, but hey, it works.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really how you build a fan base. It's like crawling around in the mud, right?
Yeah, you gotta have a shtick. Everybody has to have a shtick.
Well, and at some point, I'll be too
funny hats and muddy belly.
Right. At some point, I'll be too old to I'll be able to get down, but I won't be able to get back up. So I think that being able to do that kind of uncomfortable photography now, same thing with ducks. Like, I don't mind getting in the water and like wading into the chest deep water and holding my lens over the water or whatever. But as I get a bit older and hand holding the lenses becomes more difficult, and I can't lay down and get up and move around as easily. So I'm enjoying it now because I know that it won't last forever. At some point, everybody gets relegated to the lodge porch shooting set up toucans because that's what's easiest, right? But for the moment, crawling around is a lot of fun.
Nice. Now, I know you are a devout sports fan.
Yes.
And I...
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Yes, baby. Yes, now you're speaking my language. I love it. I love it. Yes. Yeah, I'm extremely excited for the Eagles season, which is about to start. This is, I feel like we are well positioned for another good run here in Philly. And also the Phillies are providing a lot of entertainment. A little bit of a rough weekend, but we'll ignore that for the time being.
But they'd won like 3 out of their 4 previous series. And I mean, they're playing much better ball. Yeah, I know, exactly. Oh, the dude that we traded for, like how that's so perfect, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, they are offering some excitement, and it seems like the Sixers trade talk has settled down a little bit. So it'll be interesting.
I'm selling on the Sixers. I'm buying
They're
on the
kind of
Phillies
bringing
and
the
the
same
Eagles.
team back. Yeah. I'm not sold on the Sixers either.
No. Nope.
So running the same team back again, I don't know how it's going to go. But I've had a good time watching the World Cup, the Women's World Cup, the last few days. My dad is English, so I've kind of been pulling for the England women. But it was tough to see the Colombian women go out. I've kind of felt a
Kinship.
particular for that country after spending so much time there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've enjoyed that as well.
Japan were the favorites, really, and they're out.
Sweden looked good. I mean, Sweden has played well through the tournament. So I guess the next game's tonight. So I got to tape that because it comes out like 1:00 in the morning out here.
Yeah, I missed that whole event, unfortunately, while traveling pretty much. But let's talk a little bit about you've got a new book coming out. Well, tell folks about the title. A lot of folks will know about your biking big year, but I expect many will not. So you could, maybe set up the book for us and the journey. Tell folks a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what I tell people is the book is called Birding Under the Influence, Cycling Across America in Search of Birds and Recovery. And outwardly or ostensibly, the book is about my 2014 bicycle big year, to which George alluded. And during that adventure, I cycled about 18,000 miles through 28 states, basically through the lower 48, looking for birds without using any petroleum. And it was kind of an old-fashioned adventure. I think big years are fun adventures, but they are relatively protected and completely safe adventures under petroleum-powered circumstances. Whereas I was exposed to cars and dogs and weather and whatever else the open road wanted to throw at me. So it's a bit more of a legitimate, like, it's a real adventure. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And so the book is outwardly about my search for birds and all the crazy things that happened to me along the way. And I write a lot about the people that I met. I stayed with people that I met on the side of the road. I ate lunch with random people in different restaurants and things. And so a lot of the writing is about kind of the Americana and the folks that I experienced along the way. So it has a kind of a broader reach that way than just self-selecting for birders. But so that's kind of the linear narrative of the adventure side of things. But in the background is my history of alcoholism and drug addiction. So George gave you a little bit of an overview of my birding history. I actually started birding at age 6, and I birded very seriously up until age 15. And it was at age 17 that I discovered alcohol. And at that point, alcohol became my primary extracurricular interest for the next 13 years. And so birding kind of fell completely into the background. And between my studies doing the molecular biology and the neuroscience stuff and drinking, like birding just evaporated, and the interest remained on life support kind of in the background. And through a series of events I won't tell you about because that's a big crux of the book, I ended up getting sober and reconnecting with birding at around age 30. And after I finished my PhD at NYU, I actually went back to Boston and was a postdoctoral fellow at Mass General and Harvard Medical School. And I kind of had my midlife crisis at age 35, and I realized that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life in a lab. And so at that point, a series of circumstances kind of suggested this bicycle big year. And I took off on that adventure and had this adventure. And that solo time on the bike gave me the reflective headspace to think about, digest, and come to grips with the alcoholism that I suffered for the previous 13 years. I was sober for a couple of years before I actually got onto the bike, but I was so busy with science, I didn't have any time to pause and think about my situation. So I think that the book really, it takes you inside the mind of an addict. And I hope what people will learn is that, like, what the reader will see is my addictive tendencies redesign themselves on the bicycle once I'm riding. And I think that there's alcoholism and substance abuse have touched and affected so many people that I think that there will be a big non-birding contingency that with this book for those reasons. So I think there's a little something there for everybody. And there is some romance. I won't go into too much of that, but that's a really, really, my now wife played a huge role in the pivot between like the biking, the drinking and science, birding present, and now my guiding and kind of my now birding life. So it's probably a long nutshell, but there's a lot in this book.
Yeah.
It's a bit more than the traditional, like I went here and saw this, I went there and saw that. So
it's definitely a different story than I think we've seen in birding before. I do think, like, I don't, I don't begrudge anyone doing a big year. As you say, I feel like there've been so many that have been done at this point, that it's not. Typically, it's not a particularly new or refreshing story when it comes to big years, right? Like they usually you need some time and some money to do these, and I think everyone would love to do one in those circumstances, but to do one where there's no planes involved, no cars, you're on the road. I mean, it's sort of like an Easy Rider meets birding kind of thing, except it was a bicycle, man-powered bicycle, not an e-bike or
right.
I remember we were in touch during the course of that year, and I remember talking about checking in, seeing how you were doing. It was a really fun thing to watch, and it seemed like you always had some new story about. Like I remember my parents bumping into you when you were on the coast of Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you'd found a rough down there or something, and they were excited to see that. But it was really quite. You started off in, and I don't want to give away the whole book here, but I do think folks would enjoy hearing a little bit about the journey. You started off in January in Boston, right?
Yeah. I mean, I talk a little bit how I came up with the strategy, and the strategy actually dictated starting in Boston, which was fortuitous because that's where I lived. But when I started, my first day topped out at 25 degrees.
I was going to say, yeah, biking in Boston in January is not for the faint of heart. Yeah.
And if I could have signed a piece of paper on that end of that first day that says like, you will stay in the 20s for the entire first month, but never reach into the 30s, I would have, because it ended up being much worse than that. And I got 22 inches of snow on the second day, and it was housebound for 2 days. And when I started again on January 4th, there was 10 degrees below zero. So I was like biking along, Stay Puft Marshmallow, man. But it was crazy because like the roads were empty, and I'm biking through like this winter wonderland over frozen rivers and just like trees covered in snow. And it was something that no other, at least North American birder has ever experienced. Like I had an experience on the fourth day of my big year that no one has replicated. And I think that was kind of a microcosm for how the year would unfold. And like, I get big years. Like I totally get why they're exciting and why people do them in the attraction. But I just thought the bicycle would lend a bit more to the story and really push me in a way that I needed to be pushed and that other people hadn't been pushed. And I think it's not a better story. It's just a different story, you know? And I'll never begrudge somebody for going and doing a big year, particularly somebody who works their whole life and then retires. And like, that's what they've been dreaming of, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
Like props to that. That's just not my style. And like, after being on the bike, I'm so glad I did it on the bike. It was hard and there were meltdowns. Like I had several where I was like ready to go to the nearest bar and begin my final undoing, but like toughing it out was the right move. But it was really awesome. And yeah, I saw the country in a way that very few people are fortunate to see it.
In the very short 1 day walking big days that I've done here, for fundraising and stuff, one of the things that you realize you don't think about, and I'm sure that it's super obvious when you're on a bike, is you cannot backtrack to go get the thing that you missed unless it's really, really close. Like anybody who's flying around, they're like, oh yeah, whatever, Whisker Turn was there, I missed it. I'll fly again next week if it's back, whatever. If you're on a route that it's the effort to actually do it is so high, you cannot go back because it messes everything else you have forward. And you have no time. Your time runs out.
That's a really good point. Like in a normal big year, you basically wait by the phone and go where the birds dictate, and then you go where the rarities dictate, and then you fill in the other ones. Whereas my strategy was exactly the opposite. I sat down with the bird book and identified like 6 or 7 key areas where range maps overlapped at certain times of the year, and it's like, this is where I have to be. And so I didn't put rarities in my equation. And like all of this is outlined in detail in the book, and the strategy I think is really interesting because I had to have my entire like national route set and only regional tweaks were possible. And
Mm-hmm.
like mangrove cuckoo was a bird that I tried to get in Florida. And if I wanted to be on time in Texas for migration, I had to fold that bird. Like I just had to say, I cannot push more time into this bird. Whereas in a normal big year, I could have just flown back during the breeding season when they're really vocal and they're responsive to tape and whatnot. But I was there in February and March when the birds are quieter and they're not as territorial. So I just had to fold that. And same thing on the Texas coast. Like I stayed on the Texas coast for 2 weeks and I didn't get black-billed cuckoo, yellow-bellied flycatcher, and mourning warbler, which are 3 of the last birds to come through. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, you know what? I can sit here for another 5 days on southeast winds waiting for these birds to show up, or I can just take this time and leave. And I left. And if I was a big petroleum powered bird, I could have just flown to their breeding range, even individually. I got off the plane, played some tape, heard them, and boom, got them. But I just had to fold them. And the grouse are really hard too, because a petroleum powered birder flies into Denver and does basically what I call a foolproof loop a week through Colorado and Kansas to get all of the game birds. But I couldn't be there in March and April because I had to be on the Gulf Coast. And then I had to go to Arizona, and then I went to the mountains. So I spent the entire summer in the Mountain West, like chasing grouse off Lek, and like finding sage grouse was impossible. Finding ptarmigan was impossible. Finding greater prairie chicken was impossible.
That's a tough way to find those chickens.
Like I tell people in the book, like I have to walk through the habitat. Like I probably walked 50 or 60 miles through sagebrush, clapping my hands, whoo, whoo, hooting to like expand my presence. Because the only way that I would see these birds is if I flushed them. Like had anybody seen me doing this, I would have been taken to the nearest facility and like locked up because it looked that crazy. But it was totally different having to find those birds midsummer versus just driving up and being like, check and moving on. So there's a lot of really interesting dynamics because of the limitations that the bicycle imposed. That I couldn't be in 2 places at one time like you can on a plane.
I think traditionally, right, the big years, it's like the first 6 months are pretty planned out for people that do the typical, fly around, drive around big years. They kind of know, all right, January I'm doing this, February I'm doing this. They'll divert for the rarity, but they kind of they know where they're going for the predictable birds. And then the second half of the year is like, okay, there's going to be a lot of flights to Alaska. And then like maybe the mid-Atlantic for things like whiskered tern or,
curlew sandpiper.
Yeah, curlew sandpiper, that kind of, like Eurasian shorebirds that might have been tougher up in Alaska. But it sounds like, I think typically it seems like people really enjoy the first half of the big year. And then the second half, it's like you fly to Alaska for something and then you get home and you're like, okay, in a couple of days, I got to go for this seabird or this shorebird. And then something else shows up in Alaska and then you got to fly back to Alaska.
Yeah.
And it's like, so in that respect, I think you had an advantage in a way from my perspective, because for me, I would hate that. I would hate the like, okay, I was just in Alaska. Now I'm going to turn around and fly back there. Like in a way you knew your route. I am curious though, once those first 6-7 months were done, did you at any point kind of divert or change? Because I'm sure you had your plan in place, in certainly by December 31st of the year before. Did you have to make any big reroutes or big adjustments to your route, halfway through the year or so?
Yeah. So it's important for people to know I had no cycling experience before I cooked up this plan. I had ridden a bike around Stanford when I was an undergraduate there, to and from frat parties, which is often an adventure. But I had no formal cycling experience. And so it was both arrogant and naive to think that I could pull off a big year. When I first started telling this to people, they're like, dude, this is insane. Nobody can do this. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this work. But I estimated at the outset that in order to see 600 species, I'd have to ride an average of 40 miles a day, which isn't that much by biking standards. But by the time you heap on weather demands and birding demands, the overarching birding demands, it's a lot of time. And so that held true for about the first half of the year, but I realized about halfway through that I had grossly underestimated what my body and my mind was capable of. And so I was in Colorado, I started to expand my route to chase birds that I thought would have been out of reach before, because I I didn't get sick the entire year. I did not lose a day to injury the entire year. I lost days to fatigue when I'd ride 125 miles through mountains or through thunderstorms or whatever. The next day I was like wiped out, but that's to be expected. But I stayed so healthy that I was able to expand my route in Colorado. I was able to do a lot more in the Pacific Northwest. I was able to backtrack for some rarities in California. So I did like 400 miles of backtrack riding to get things like, well, I'll just leave it there. I was able to really extend myself. And I think that that's where understanding my mindset of addiction helps you to understand, you as a hopefully a future reader of this book will help you understand that like, I couldn't say no. And I had to overdo the bicycle the same way that I overdid alcohol and drugs kind of in my previous life, so to speak. But yeah, I think that it was playing with the root, and I'm a kind of a technician in all things. I love logistics, and I mean, I'm a genetic engineer at heart. And so I love trying to find the like most elegant and most efficient solution to problems. And like the daily engineering and the like global engineering of the route was something that just fascinated me. Like I now look back and I'm like, I would do some things differently, but not a lot of things differently. And I think one of the things that you brought up a minute ago, which was interesting, is like when people go all in on these big years, there's a benchmark. There's a record that we all recognize, whether it's the lower 48, the old school ABA, the new school ABA, all these various geographies, right? There are established numbers for all of those. Like one of the things one of the reasons that I liked that the bicycle was so attractive to me is that yes, people had done like state bike big years and more likely county big years, but nobody had done the whole country. And so I was freed from comparison and expectation. Like my imagination was all that mattered, and my ability to keep going was all that mattered. And it wasn't going to matter how many birds I found. The important thing was just pedaling the bicycle every day, and everything else took care of itself. And I think that's what made this adventure a bit more different. Like if somebody flew around the country and didn't see a single bird, you'd say there was no value in that. But even if I didn't see a single bird riding my bike around the country, like there was so much value in like what I saw and how I experienced it and the everyday Americans with which I interacted. And that's why I don't feel bad about talking about the adventure like on the podcast, because so much of the value of the trip is what I was thinking about and the people that I met and how those people I met along the way forced me to think about like my preconceived or ingrained notions of the world. So for instance, I left. Folding my career was a really hard decision. I think that generally speaking, and this is a huge generalization, big year folks fall into two camps. It's young folks who haven't kind of got their professional life up and running yet, and older folks who are winding their professional life down. I was right in the middle of my professional life. Like I left 16 years of for lack of a better term, the best education a person could get on the table, and threw away what I think was a promising career in science to go and do this. I had a lot to lose. And I think that like I was caught up in ego and trying to be the smartest guy in the room all the time before I left. And all these people I met along the way through these various conversations helped me realize that happiness isn't some construct to which you should aspire. It's like the act of having experiences that matters so much more. Like I thought happiness was getting to be a professor at one of these fancy schools and speaking at conferences and publishing fancy papers. And it wasn't until I met people who seemed so happy doing so many different off the wall things that like I wouldn't have considered, that I was like, man, like my notion of what happiness is for lack of a better word, totally fucked. Like I had to learn how to be happy. And I'm getting a little emotional. Like I had to learn how to be happy all over again. And it took the bicycle and that trip to help me do that. And now like doing all this bird guiding and doing these podcasts and putting my message out there, it's so different than what I ever imagined myself doing. And so it's cool. Like, it's totally different. It's like, it's so different from like what I imagined for myself. And that's the message I want to leave people with. Like, I was scared as shit when I got on the bike and I didn't know what was coming. And I didn't know if I'd come back, but it all worked out and in ways that I didn't necessarily know or anticipate. And I think that's the best part. Like, the birds are great, but the adventure was the best part.
We were talking yesterday, right after the pelagic, about how exactly this kind of thing um, is in the bird world. We have so many people who are basically, if you said to somebody, "This is what I'm going to do with my life, and I'm going to write about birds, I'm going to talk about birds, I'm going to do like all this stuff based on your passion," you would be labeled insane. And my parents also were like, "This is great. This is a hobby. This is a hobby. This is not a life. You cannot do this life because it's going to be really like people don't, get a house doing this kind of thing. They
Right.
they will never, you know what I mean? So, and they meant well, but they didn't realize that sometimes you are insane enough to actually do it.
Right.
And actually you believe enough that to me, the fear of not doing it was stronger because I did
Right.
not know what to do. Like, I did not know that you could, I mean, what was I going to get as a job? All I knew was birds and nature and science and stuff, like I had no recourse, you know what I mean? Like, so I kind of totally understand what you're talking about. And it is emotional because so much there's so many expectations in life from all these people, and doing kind of this weird, different, not on the books as like a career kind of thing is really scary, but somebody has to do it and somebody has to prove that it can be done. So
Right.
it's so awesome you can tell your story about what you've done, because
And
it's cool.
And I think that I just had this idea of like what happiness and success was. And so I think the big thing is like you have to be willing to take a risk and you have to be willing to fail. Like you have to put yourself out there at some point. And we all say that and we all kind of know that, but
Yeah.
I didn't actually do it until I took this adventure, until I made the decision to do this. And we talked a little bit about this on the boat yesterday. Like, you control decisions. Like, you have infinite control over the decisions you make, but you don't have control of the outcomes. Like,
Right.
the story would be very different if I got run over 3 days into my trip and was killed, right? But you can't let the fear of a negative outcome dissuade you from making proactive decisions and just going for things. And it's really, I mean, you do have to. There has to be some amount of foresight. You can't live so footloose and fancy free that you end up putting yourself in a hole. Like, for instance, I mean, and this is, readers will read about this. My wife was absolutely instrumental in changing my life on 2 separate occasions, and so it was amazing to have support in her form. Um, but I was fortunate. Like, there's little things like I had health insurance through her job. Like, when I took off on the bike. And so there was that consideration of like, okay, if something really bad happens. I also bought catastrophic health insurance and things. So your leap can't be so blind that if things go wrong, like they go really wrong. But you have to just get the bases in place and then say, you know what, I think I can do this, and I believe I can do this, and to hell what anybody else thinks, and then take the leap. Like, it caused the decision to do this caused a lot of friction with my parents. Like, it just didn't compute. As it sounds like people in your life are saying, why you would leave an academic background to go pursue what's a hobby for pay and a hobby for fun. But if you're passionate enough and you want it badly enough, you can make it work, right? I think that you just have to be super tenacious and you have to go after. It's the same in anything. To be successful in anything, you have to go and you have to like knock down doors and seize opportunity and take chances.
I
And
bet, on hindsight, when people say, "Oh my God," like Stanford, you know, uh, where you were at all these big schools, you were doing all this kind of stuff, and people said this guy, was really doing really difficult stuff. But I imagine, while difficult, all of that was safe for you. You knew how to
right,
do that. You knew how to
exactly.
excel at something really difficult, right? Like you could, exactly what you had to do. But that in itself is a trap, right?
Right,
Because
exactly.
you can get into this situation where you're like, I mean, am I doing this for me or for who am I doing this for?
Right. And I think that's a lot of it. Like you have to be willing to fail. Like
Yeah.
you have to fall on your face and make every mistake once. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes when I was drinking twice and 15 times and 20 times, but like you have to make mistakes and you have to flounder and you have to fumble and that's
fail.
how you
Yeah.
learn. You know, you have to do that. Like
Yeah.
I always tell people, like coming on bird tours is great, but like the way you learn birds is going somewhere on your own and fumbling around and you have to have more time. But that's really how you learn things, you know, is on your own and putting yourself out there. So, I mean, it's interesting. I'm so curious to see, like in the big year landscape, for instance, like if my adventure motivates people to try to do some different things moving forward. Like, and I think that there's a big difference between talking about it and doing it, you know. And people have approached me and said, "Oh, I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking about that." Like, get some pieces in place and then do it. Like whether it's a bike or whether it's something else or whether it's not a big year, like whether it's just a birding project, like just do it. Like pull the trigger and do it because you'll regret it more. Like and you'll regret. I mean, it's this old cliche. You'll regret the things you don't do more than the things that you
Right.
do. You know?
I believe that one is like I use that quote a lot because I think it's really true that you regret the chances you don't take more so.
Yeah.
I think it's really true.
You know, when Peterson and oh gosh, what's the British guy that he did that? You know, Wild America.
What's the guy's name?
Oh man, but you know, it's so they do this essentially the first big year, right? And they make a book about it. But the whole concept of it, if you read about it, was to show people the diversity of wild lands and birds in North America. You know, it was really about it had this other meaning, you know, behind it rather than just seeing a bunch of birds. And we, like a lot of things in North American society, we've stripped meaning out of stuff we do sometimes, you know, like and maybe I mean, I don't want to generalize, but some of the big year um, successes that have been had are all about the numbers,
Right.
totally all about the numbers, right? But it never started out that way. It wasn't about the numbers. It was about diversity. And then your big year is not about the numbers either. Obviously that matters, but it's about the journey. And you wonder if like now we can kind of come into this concept back again into big years, having some kind of adventure and meaning to them, rather than just beating who won, who's the top. Maybe we can like start thinking about, okay, how do we, you know, either, you know, do something for the birds that educates people through this concept, or obviously not everybody has to do that, but some of the ones that will stand out, I think, in the future might, you know. And I think that's what's cool about your big year is that you took the concept to help you out, but you also, you know, are helping people see the entire aspect of the crazy bird story and also the crazy human story and the people along the way. It's pretty cool. I really, you know, I mean, I've been kind of, you know, I've had their book kind of, you know, to look at, and it's a neat thing, you know, but it's
and being on the bike helped me appreciate bird migration, for instance. Like you don't when you're driving in a car, flying in a plane, you're not thinking about headwinds. You're not thinking about weather because the environment's paying the price in the form of just more gas being burned. But when you're on the bike, like I had to look at the wind and the weather like every 10 minutes. And when I'm on the Texas coast, there's a point in the book where I read about, like, I had to start thinking like a migrant bird.
Yeah, you're so
attuned using the wind.
Yeah, and being
like using the wind when it presents, and if that meant like folding some birding opportunity to save some energetics, like that was the decision that I had to make. And I think that, like, I mean, I think it's cool that we've talked now for 50 minutes about, or half an hour about my big year, and then the number I found doesn't matter. Like we haven't even touched on it. You know, it doesn't matter in the discussion. And I think that's super cool. But I think that I think that more generally, the problem that we have is that we in American society want to quantize everything, whether it's how much money you make, whether it's how many Instagram followers you have, how many birds did you see? We put this huge emphasis on quantizing comparison and also this gamification of leveling up in everything that we do. Right. And like at some point, you have to just get back to basics and be outside and enjoy birding and enjoy birding with other people in some context, enjoy birding on your own in other contexts, and just like unplug from the gamification. And I'm guilty of this. I can't go birding without e-birding. Like my phone is as much a part of my birding kit these days as is my binoculars, or as are my binoculars, to use the correct term. But it's, maybe I'll try that. Maybe this afternoon I'll try to go out birding like without e-birding and just like really unplug and get back to basics. And hopefully that will manifest in other aspects of my life as well, because we all get caught up in the rat race, whether it's the birding rat race or the raising our kids rat race. I don't have that going on, but like the career rat race as you described, and you just kind of do your own thing and figure out where in the landscape you want to be and why you want to be there and why it makes you happy, and kind of to hell with the rest, right?
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, the book, Al, you were mentioning was Wild America with James Fisher. That was the book with Roger Tory Peterson, Wild America with James Fisher. That was one of my father's absolute favorite books. Came out in 1955. Definitely a recommended piece of literature on birding. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like moving forward, I'd love to see. I mean, I think that the more restrictions you put on the big year, the more interesting it gets. For instance, like people have always talked about like a no rarity alert big year. Like everything has to be self-found.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think that the more restrictions you put on it, the more interesting it gets. Right.
We've talked a little before. I would love an audio only, like you can see whatever you want, but everything that you get has to be heard. Like, because I think that would get into some interesting territory for certain species which really don't vocalize much, but yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be, some of the pelagics, a few of them are allowed, do their thing, but others get that ashy storm petrel to say something, otherwise I can't count it.
Yeah. No,
yeah, I mean,
it forced people to think about stuff in a different way, but yeah.
Right. Like it would also be interesting. It would also be interesting to have to see, especially in the sexually dimorphic species, like the male and the female, to see both plumages. Like I just think that like there's so many cool tweaks that could be put on it rather than just, I'm going to see as many as possible.
Right.
And like I said, I'll never begrudge anybody that.
No, it's supposed to be fun, right?
Want.
It should be fun. Yeah. For whoever, you don't want to yuck anybody's yum. So whatever if they're out there enjoying birds, that's cool. But I think you're right.
Exactly. But I think that there is room for more permutations. And I think that, I haven't really talked about this idea with too many people. One idea that I have moving forward is this idea that like big years are immensely personal events, but they don't really involve the community save for these like vicarious looks. And one of the ideas I've had, and somebody's going to steal it after this, I'm sure, is like having what I've termed the birding baton. And so actually having two batons that are like the batons that people pass in relay races in the Olympics, and you have a red baton and a blue baton. And each year, like we create an eBird account for each baton, and the baton gets physically passed between birders, and you can only have it for a week, and then you have to pass it to someone else. And so like when you see stuff for that week, you eBird it and share it with the red baton list or the blue baton list. And it's a contest between the two batons, but involves like anybody who gets the baton. Mm-hmm. And so
I like this.
Like,
yeah.
I think that that's the kind of big year project that I envision. One that is not centered on one person flying around or biking around, but it involves the whole community. And like, I could pass that baton to some 13-year-old kid who can then get a couple of species for the list or whatever, who can then pass it to someone else who can go get a couple other species. And even if they don't add anything, they feel a part of the project mm-hmm. because they've got the baton, And I think that like these are the kinds of big year projects that I'm trying to wrap my head around right now, rather than like doing another one on my own, for instance. So like the birding baton project is something that I've started discussing with some people and see how I could get it off the ground. Like, but that's how I'm trying to think about birding. Is like, how do you use the big year model to build community rather than just to kind of like worry about records or kind of put people on pedestals, so to speak.
I like that kind of thing. really, because people do get excited about big years. I mean, I gotta admit, I hear about another big year, kind of classic big year, and I'm not that excited. I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like, are they gonna beat the record? Are they not gonna beat the record? Almost like the journey doesn't matter. It's just what's the end point.
Right.
At that, you know what I mean? It's like what's the number gonna be?
Yeah. I'm like, wake me up in, December 31st. Let me know. Till then.
Yeah, and then so it seems like I wonder if it's played out like the classic big year.
The classic one, I feel similarly. I feel like there's, I wouldn't begrudge anybody doing it as a personal challenge. I think that's cool. But as a story, I don't think there's much new there unless you do something kind of different, and covering, what was it? 18,000 miles or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's,
and I probably walked
story.
another 1,500 looking for birds too.
How many dogs you get bitten by?
I did not actually get bitten, but I got attacked, and it was apart from getting hit, it was the moment, and maybe almost getting hit by lightning in Pawnee National Grassland. But
oh man,
I thought I feared for my life when I got attacked in Arizona. I'll just leave it at that. It's a whole scene in the book. It was absolutely terrifying. Yeah. I got attacked. I probably should have been bitten, but I was not. But you can read about that. But I got chased like the South. The South was such a hot mess with dogs because nobody fences their dog down there. So at points I'd be like riding through these small towns and like I'd have like 10, 15 dogs behind me all barking. And it wasn't so much that they were going to attack me. It's that I felt like if one ran in front of my bike, that there was danger to both me and the dog.
Yeah.
But I felt like this 2-wheeled Pied Piper riding through. I felt like somebody had like taken my biking shorts and like soaked them in like beef extract as I was riding through these towns because there were so many dogs following me around. Man. But yeah, it was a really good adventure, and I think that people will enjoy reading it, and I think that people will enjoy kind of my take on America, like seeing America at 15 miles an hour. Like I think I used the quote that the bicycle slowed me down enough to realize what I'd been missing in racing around in kind of like an academic and egotistical and physical sense before. And so I just noticed things that you miss when you're moving at 55 or 555 miles an hour if you're in a plane. So like, it was really cool. It was really cool to ride through rural North Carolina and wasn't cool, but to see the decay of small town America. It was cool to ride through Compton and see an area that in the past was like a government sponsored ghetto, but is now like revitalized and multicultural and welcoming and friendly, and I think that it's very different when you drive through those areas in a car versus when you ride through them on a bike and you're kind of part of the scene as opposed to it
being walled off from it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that the bicycle just offered me this like unbelievably authentic view of America. And I think that people recognize that vulnerability. Like there were people who bent over backwards to help me, both birders and non-birders. Like everybody wanted to help. And there were times when I thought that I was being approached as a suspect or an enemy. And I was always being approached as a friend, somebody approaching me to help. And help came in the most unlikely forms. And so I think that at a politically divided time, when there's a lot of friction and whatnot in America, I think that laying all of that bullshit aside, at the end of the day, America took care of me in a way that I think is inspiring, uplifting, and motivational. So hopefully that aspect will resonate with birders and non-birders alike.
Nice. 2 final questions I've got here for you. I know we all got to scoot here shortly. What? Obviously you had some 0 miles days where you had to catch up on rest. I'm curious what your longest riding day was in terms of miles covered. Also, the most unsatisfying thing you had to eat during the course of the year.
Oh God. Yeah. So I had a couple days that were like 120 miles. There was one stretch in Texas where I did like a couple 100-mile days, like back to back. I can't remember if there's a third day. The most I rode in 3 consecutive days was actually chasing a rarity. I rode 300 miles. So I rode the equivalency of Boston to New York or Chicago to St. Louis or Vancouver to Portland to chase one specific bird, one rarity that could have could have left. And so those were exhausting.
What was the bird? What was the bird?
It was Rufus-becked robin in Southern California. So people can read about that. That was really where like I couldn't say no at that stage. Like I was full on addicted. So I guess I rode 100 miles 14 times. My average daily mileage ended up being about 48. A lot of cyclists throw away the days they don't ride in their average, but that's not how math is done. You don't get to selectively eliminate data points. So my average includes the days I didn't ride. If you threw those out, the average would, I don't know, be 5 or 6 miles per day higher. What was the second part of that?
Most unsatisfying meal during the course of your year.
Yeah. When I stayed in Sabine Pass in Texas, there were no brick and mortar businesses in evidence. So for 5 nights in a row, I ate a Hunt Brothers pepperoni pizza and a can of cold peas from the local Chevron station. But the best part, because I'm like super earthy and environmental, I told the woman at the gas station, I'm like, look, I'm staying here for 5 nights. I'm going to eat the same large pizza for dinner every night. If I bring the same box back each night and I save you 4 boxes, will you put the new pizza into the old box? And she said yes. So
Nice.
that my environmental caution or conscience there saved 4 additional pizza boxes from being put
Solid.
into the town landfill. Yeah. So every night I'd walk in there after birding at Sabine Woods, and she'd put my pizza in there and I'd toddle back and eat it. And then my can of cold peas. So, but it was awesome. I will say the fun thing was I stayed in a lot of, most of the time I rode into town, it was like, what's the worst motel in town? And if it had like blood on the walls or gunshots in the windows, like I just didn't care. Like it was totally cool. Best Western did hook me up. They gave me $6,000 to use at their hotel. So I knew that when I was staying with them, I'd get a good night's sleep.
That's awesome.
But I think my best nights were actually when I stayed with hosts, because people would like roll out the real food and really bend over backwards to help. Like the best were empty nesters, because like all of the maternal and paternal genes got turned back on, and they'd like make me this huge spread and then tuck me in and want to read me Goodnight Moon with like a glass of warm milk and things. So it was a lot of fun, like staying with empty nesters.
Nice.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, the people that I met along the way and the people who hosted me are as much a part of the story, or more so a part of the story, than the birds, because the birds never asked anything of me. They didn't ask me to think about myself or change my perspective. Whereas the people I met along the way did, like over and over again. And so they're the best part of the story.
Nice. Well, that's fantastic.
So I have one question. I think yesterday I just got intrigued by this. Like I think talking to your wife, Sonia, she said that probably the writing of the book was more cathartic than the actual doing the event. Is that kind of how you see it too? Like,
yeah, because I think that like I had all of these ideas in my head, and as to like, I had all these bits and pieces of like experiences and things that I had learned, but it wasn't until I sat down and wrote that I kind of synthesized them. And I think that that's probably true for a lot of writers. Like the book is written as if everything was nicely, neatly packaged by the end of the adventure. And there's some truth in that, but it wasn't until like I put it all down and I had the puzzle pieces and I kind of like put them together that like the picture emerged. And I'm like, I understand. Like this is the picture that I painted of myself. And this is the lens that the adventure was, the lens that I was able to use to examine myself. And this is the resulting image and learnings that I reaped from it. So writing, I mean, it was a long and protracted process. Like I'm sure you guys have both written books. And so you have this idea of like, oh yeah, this will take 2 years. And then it inevitably takes twice as long. And there's starts and stops, especially with tour guiding and things. Like I'd be preparing for a tour and then on tour and then trip reports and that stuff.
To be honest, we were like, is this Dorian book ever going to come out?
Right.
We're real proud of you.
And the other thing is that it took time. Like this, hopefully readers will understand that there are a lot more moving pieces in this book than there have been in some other birding books. And that like, this isn't a big year book. This is a memoir, and it covers 35 years of my life, from when I discovered birding as a kid to like the decisions to go to these high-powered schools and how I fell down this like egotistical rabbit hole to like how I got involved in alcohol and drugs. Like there's a lot of moving pieces, and it took a long time to figure out how to tell the story effectively. And also, I was a science guy. I didn't take English in college. I did all science and math. So I didn't have a model for writing dialogue and developing character and building tension and building suspense and like how you have to like build a character through a novel and how you can't just like put it all on the table right out of the gate. So it took time to learn that. And I needed editorial help with that because it was a difficult task. And that was what made this take a long time. If it was just, I went here and saw this, I went here and saw that, it would have been easy, but it wasn't. So it took a lot of time.
Do you talk about, you used to DJ during your NYU years, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was, and I guess you're all going to hear it eventually. Like, yeah, I mean, I spent my life when I wasn't at like in class. I was just really good at school. I was really good at science and really good at math. And so I didn't have to put a lot of effort forward. And so like when I was at NYU, I was DJing at clubs and raves, and I would go to nightclubs and bang lines of cocaine until 6 a.m. and go, that'd be Tuesday night. And
then head off for class?
Go home and catch a disco nap and brush my teeth and go off to class, and usually just go to my lab because I was like, class is for losers. I'll just like, class isn't what makes your scientific career go. It's your research. And so I just skipped class and then went and did my research. And so, yeah, I mean, I had this whole like double life that I was living, and that I was in my lab, like for lack of a better term, like nerding it up all day. And then I'd go out at night and erase my mind and wet my bed and wake up and regret what I did and not remember who I hung out with or where I was or how the hell I got home. And
so do it all again the next night.
Yeah. Right. And do it all again the next night. And against the like louder and louder warnings of friends and family. And eventually it got bad enough that I had to change it. And luckily I never hit like a proverbial rock bottom, and why I didn't is very, very important, but I won't tell you that. I'll make you read the book to understand that. Like there was a specific person in my life who really motivated change after I pushed them away. And so I lost enough in that moment that I finally realized I need to do something. Yeah. So, but I'll leave it there. I won't ruin the whole story.
Excellent. Well, my copy is coming. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be reading it very soon. And I think Al has started in already. And we've been hearing really good stuff, Dorian, from other friends. I know we haven't actually talked about that, but we both, Al and I have talked about, we know some other folks that have been looking at it and have been really enjoying it. And I know my dad is super excited to review it. He's going to review it on the Hillstar Nature site as well for our book review section.
I appreciate that. That'll be great. It'll be good to have Harry's voice lent to that.
He's a big Dorian fan, so it'll
that makes one. So got to start somewhere. He's the founder and founding member of the Dorian Anderson fan club. So.
That's right.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been awesome talking to you guys, and I'm stoked you had me on, and hopefully people can hear how much this project meant to me, especially with my midway meltdown.
Yeah.
No,
so hopefully that emotion will translate when you read it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll put a link to pre-orders and all that kind of stuff, and we'll let people know about all that too.
Yeah, if you hear this and you're interested in the book, please order it now while it's in pre-sale. Like, it's a really important time for the book, and the more orders I get in pre-sale, there's like this multiplier effect after the fact, after the release date. So one sale now will translate into more sales later. After the release date, it's a 1-to-1 kind of thing. So if you're thinking about buying the book, please do it before November 2nd. Do it right now, like right now.
Yes.
Call today, don't delay.
Right.
And you're coming to Cape May this fall, right? You got the Cape
That's
May
right.
Festival.
I'll be at the Cape May Fall Festival. I guess that's the 18th to the 22nd. I'll be there on the 19th, 20th, and 21st before coming back to Cali. So if you're in the area, I'll be giving a talk there. It'd be great to liaise with some of you. I think we might actually even have physical books there. I think we will have physical books there. So that will be like the first time, even though it doesn't get mailed till November 2nd, we will actually have physical books there for purchase and signing and anything else you want to do with them, you know.
Awesome.
Level out that like coffee table. You can put it under the leg after you read it or whatever. So yeah, but it'll be good. It'll be good to be back on the East Coast for a while.
Yeah,
so.
we'll be
and I'll see you, George.
Yeah.
I'll see you, George, when I'm home for Christmas, because I'm actually coming home for Christmas this year for the first time.
Well, I'll be around for Cape May too, so I'll probably see you then. But we should definitely, we'll plan some birding for Christmas time. That'll be great. Yeah.
So watch some eagles and watch some birds.
Yes, go birds, baby, and we'll watch some birds too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Thanks so much, Dorian. Thanks everybody for listening. and we'll be back at you again soon. Cheers, everybody.
Perfect. Thanks.
Bye-bye.